This is the video for you if you love visiting English country churches and you love a flower festival. It's not actually going to be a video about peonies. And if you want to find a little bit more about peonies and when to cut them to enjoy them at home, you'll need to watch my video from a couple of weeks ago. I'll leave a link to that in the description underneath this video. Hello and welcome. I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. And although this video isn't about peonies, I am going to cut some of them to enjoy indoors. In this video, I am going to take you along to 2 church flower festivals, and I'm also going to show you a sneak peek into a 3rd church. So although flower festivals might not be your thing, if you want to have a little peek into life in the English countryside, this is going to be the perfect video for you. Now, if you are a flower fan, let me know in the comments what it is that you like best about flower festivals. Obviously it's the flowers, but do you like looking around country churches? Or is it the bric-a-brac stall that interests you? Or perhaps even the refreshments? We've still gone bunching crazy here, but as I put my peonies into my vase, and these were the peonies I picked in that first video that I was telling you about, let me tell you a little bit about the first flower festival we went to. This was in a church quite local to us, in a small village called Selling. And the theme of this flower festival was books. And it was quite a small flower festival, very low key, and involved lots of members of the community. I think the bell ringers had an exhibit, the local brownies did too, the lady that owns and runs the local tea shop, so it was very much a community affair. And the best thing about it, well, there was a bric-a-brac stall, so I will give you a little tour of the bric-a-brac stall and then show you a couple of things that I bought. Welcome to St Mary the Virgin at Selling, which is a small village just outside of Faversham. You might recognise it from a video I posted a year ago when I took you on a tour of the same flower festival. So we knew there was going to be this fantastic bric-a-brac store. I'm loving the little bits of blue and white pottery there. I think that might be some kind of decorative jelly mould. So as we wander up the table, let me know in the comments whether you spot anything that you think I should have picked up. Lovely little ceramic jugs and dishes, all perfect for flower arranging. And these little plates here, what do you think about those? Look, made by Limoges. One with a green edge and one with a blue edge. Little figurines, a horse there. These would make great accessories if you wanted to add a little something to some of your flower arrangements. Great place to pick up some costume jewellery. Lots of baubles, bangles and beads. And then we move on to the books. And lots of empty tins which were really pretty. And this is what I bought. A little fawn, Bambi. And it says at the bottom, made in Western Germany, which I understand dates it between 1973 and 1990. It really does look mid-70s, doesn't it? And the other thing I bought was this little plaque, a remembrance from Paris. It says on the back, Meissner, Limoges, France. So the bric-a-brac was by donation only. I paid 50p an item. Rather bizarrely, I spotted these in a vintage store a couple of days later, and they were priced at £5 each. I can remember my mum buying something like this when we went to Versailles when I was about 10 years old, and she was really disappointed because when she got home, I think probably the wording Versailles rubbed off. So I'm planning to use this when I give my front door wreath a little bit of an update. That's the plate wreath I've made with some vintage plates that I've collected from the charity shop. If you're interested in knowing how I made that, I'll make sure I leave a link to the video in the description underneath this one. Here we are inside the church. So these exhibits are all about books. So the question of the day is, can you guess the books before I reveal what the book is? What do you reckon here? I was rather shocked when I saw 50 Shades of Grey. That's a rather saucy title. But this arrangement was made by the parish council, and obviously with tongue-in-cheek, they're making a comment on how difficult it is making decisions locally when things aren't always black and white. And do you remember this book, Driving Over Lemons? I'm sure I've read this. It's in the genre of the book written by Peter Mayle, A Year in Provence. So here we have a blue trug packed with lemons and a fabulous display of sunflowers and gerbils. This next exhibit is a depiction of Rosie of the River by Catherine Cookson, and it was actually made by one of the ladies from my own flower club, and she's really embracing going foam free, so this arrangement is made in chicken wire. Two of the exhibits had chosen exactly the same title. This is by the Brownies, depicting, you've guessed it right, Alice in Wonderland. There's the white rabbit. And here's the other rather spectacular exhibit for Alice in Wonderland, and this was made by the lady who runs the local tea shop, really embracing that afternoon tea vibe. There was just so much to look at here. Little toadstools, copy of the old book, picnic rub. Can you see the white rabbit there, tucked behind? Stocks in white, pink and mauve, and the purple of the rhododendrons. A real feast for the eyes. Beautiful vintage crockery used. Barley twist on the table leg there. The Mad Hatter's hat. Queen of Hearts. Absolutely glorious. This arrangement had a really country garden wild look. There's oxeye daisies, which may well have been picked from the verge. Some cow parsley. Rhododendrons, which may well have been picked from the local woods. A lovely blending of colour. And each arrangement just put in a little pot on its own, but having great impact because they're grouped together. Beautiful little detail there on the teacup. Gold rimmed edge on the other one. I always think that must be quite tricky to drink out of a cup with a shaped edge like that. And there's a little rabbit tucked away, this time covered in green astroturf rather than being the white rabbit. Here we've got a view of the altar with the two arrangements in the little alcoves. And then the cross, just as we were about to leave, we'd overlooked the font. We'd walked straight into the church and went straight to the bric-a-brac sale. Can you guess the title of this book? There's irises, roses, lilies. That's Red Robin that you can see, with an emphasis on the robin. Sweet William, oak, rosemary. Can you guess?
It's clever, actually.
Hazel. There's another clue. Ivy. Yep. It's the Book of Names. You don't have to be a flower arranger to take part in your local flower festival. This arrangement here, a simple display of red roses in a storage jar, has been made by the bell ringers, and their book is the handbook of bell ringing. And the Gardeners Club have got a little exhibit advertising their summer show. And then look at this, Miss Reed and the village school. This must be a teapot set with milk jug and sugar bowl, dating from the 1920s, do you think? And the thatch on the roof is made out of vibrant flowers. And of course, because you know I love flower arranging, I like to have a peek at everybody's mechanics. There's an awful lot of flower foam on show there, and I think in hindsight, this exhibitor might have been better advised to perhaps just arrange the flowers direct into water. So if the teapot wasn't watertight, a little glass could have been put in there to stop any leakages. This is a clever exhibit, again by a novice flower arranger, I'm guessing Solids and Amazons by Arthur Ransom. See the pot plants all lined up, all different kinds of fern, with the cow parsley, the blue fabric and the walnut shells making the little boats. With one church flower festival under our belts, it's time to leave and head off in the car for our next event. The next flower festival we went to was in a village called Biddenden, which is about half an hour's drive from where I live. The theme for this flower festival was a moment in time, and it was absolutely glorious. And we had really lovely weather. And the first thing we did when we got there was have a light lunch in the graveyard. It was beautiful. Carry on watching and I'll show you not only the exhibits in the flower festival, but also our trip up to the church tower. And if you'd like to know more about Biddenden, and especially the twins that are featured on the sign into the village, well, that's a special clip for those of you who are members of my YouTube channel. And on the subject of my YouTube channel membership group, why don't you become a member? All you need to do is to click the link in the description underneath the video, or find that join button next to where it says subscribe. I'm going to be hosting a monthly flower club in the group. Also means you can watch my regular Monday videos advert free, as well as having a few extra clips thrown in too. Well, we're in the right place. There's a huge sign advertising the flower festival. Welcome to All Saints Church in Biddenden. My friend and I had never been here before, and we were so delighted when we saw, can you see just off to the left of the picture, the picnic tables had been set up in the graveyard. And by this time we were quite hungry, so it was into the church for a cup of tea and to buy a light lunch, which we enjoyed under the shade of this tree. It was a little bit breezy, and that jam jar of flowers kept falling over. Very wisely, there wasn't any water in it, so there weren't any major spills. Welcome to the church and to a moment in time. So why don't you guess along in the comments and see whether you can have a go at deciding which events these flowers mark before I reveal all. And this is Eurovision. Did you spot the disco ball hanging above the church door? So all sorts of madly clashing coloured flowers, and flowers also made up from sheet music. Across the other side, a drum and a banjo, an accordion, all beautifully decorated. Tulips and gerberas, some bunny tail grass, that's the pink that's been dyed. Looks like there's some dyed chrysanthemums there, the blue, perhaps the purple ones too. And then lilies fashioned out of sheet music with little pearl-headed beads as a stamen. And now on to the church windowsill, the accordion precariously balanced. There was a really little pretty stained glass window behind. Beautiful depiction of birds. We're inside now, and here is the font. Absolutely beautiful. So many white flowers around the edge of it. This exhibit is called A Precious Life, and there's a little doll waiting to be baptised. It's peony season, well it was as I was filming, which is probably coming to the end of the garden peonies at the moment. The beautiful white, the stripy detail on the alstrom area, the white roses, little dots of baby's breath or gyp. Then we move across to the other side of the aisle. Lots of pinks and blues here. There's a little bit of a clue for you. Which moment in time could this be? There's a ranunculus, fabulous foliage there. Really big roses. These must have come from the wholesaler, I think. A rather interesting allium with the purple of the mint behind. The roses were such a pretty colour and they were really large, but they had no scent to them. That's quite often the way with commercially grown flowers. And the huge mop-head hydrangea, the bright pink of the ranunculus. I can never remember the name of the little blue, spidery looking flower. You'll have to let me know in the comments. These pale blue is delphinium, and I think there might have been a little bit of love in the mist. So this exhibit was called Welcome to the World. High up on the windowsill, this was another beautiful exhibit. And I couldn't film it very well because of the sunlight streaming in through the windows, but you can see it's the purple and the yellow, a lovely colour combination, opposite sides of the colour wheel with the tiny little beehives in between. So we've got the yellow daffodils and the purple irises. There's foxglove there, alliums, the big balls of purple. I think the white might be alliums too. Lovely, really vibrant, bright spring colours. And the moment in time there was a moment in spring. And you'll get no prizes for guessing the moment in time here with those classic colours, the purple, the white and the green of the suffragette movement and the fight we had to go through to get women the vote. Can you name the flowers that have been used? There's purple statice hanging down low there, which is the dried flower, the balls of alliums, and next to that is a stock. The little rosette flower isn't a rose there, it's a purple lisianthus. And there's the fluffy statice in the spikes. It's a fresh flower, but it does dry as well. And then of course the white roses and some white lisianthus too. And of course, you know me, I always like to have a little look around the back and check out the mechanics. So this is an arrangement made in flower foam, and this back side here, although not facing the wall, was quite clearly the back of the arrangement. So I won't be deducting any points because I can see the flower foam from behind. I don't recall what the name of this exhibit was with the what looks like gladioli in it. But it was really lovely and hidden really. You can see from the scaffolding there's some works going on in the church, and it's been covered with cargo net, and the crocheted poppies have been hung from it in an attempt to disguise it. Now this was such a poignant display, a moment of war and love, and the little typed introduction here is the story of the Flower Ranger's story, talking about her husband's family and her own husband. Really worth taking a minute to read that. Look at the plant material, they're absolutely crisp and perfect, beautifully displayed. A little jar of forget-me-nots, so poignant with that title about a moment of war and love. H.E. Bates in a moment in time. Hops from the Garden of England, rosemary from remembrance. Just a simple white jug of cow parsley, white roses, yellow roses for friendship. The blue star flower there, that's one of the first agapanthus buds coming out. The dark spike of I'm not sure if that's delphinium or larkspur. I think probably the pink may well be larkspur. And then we get a view down the aisle towards the altar. And there's no prizes for guessing that the moment in time for this part of the church was the coronation. So we've got some lovely little pew end details here. And I don't know whether you remember the pew ends in the church at Newington from the flower festival I visited in the first bank holiday in May. I'll make sure I leave a link to that in the description. And for those of you who are interested how to attach your pew ends to your pews, here they've been allowed to screw in a screw and tie it up with a piece of wire. And there's another view from the other side of that cargo netting covering up the scaffolding. We found out as well from talking to the churchgoers that the particular church is known for its kneelers and the tapestry work. So here, red, white and blue. So festive for the summertime and for all our recent royal celebrations and commemorations. So the roses, red. There's carnations in red, the gerbera's in red, a little bit of pussy willow there in the white with the white stalks more white carnations, white roses, and these are definitely delphiniums, that intense blue. And just having a closer look, I did get rather excited for a moment because I thought this arranger had gone foam free, but the flowers have been arranged in flower foam with a netting over the top just to give extra support to the flower stems. And here's a little tribute to King Charles III himself, looking rather elegant there. I thought there were some very good ideas in this section of the central aisle which was closer to the altar. Did you catch the moment in time there? A woodland walk. So it just goes to show you don't need to spend a fortune on your flowers. If you're lucky enough that you've got a garden that's got a little wild edge, you could pick your own cow parsley and buttercups and make a real seasonal display. Now I will say everything's looking a bit droopy here on this topiary tree, but it is day 3 of the flower festival. So what this arranger has done is stacked up some flower foam onto a pedestal and then added in the stems of foliage to make the mini trees. If I was going to make a suggestion for another time, I think this arrangement could have been done using chicken wire packed with moss and then having the sprigs of the natural greenery coming out. Just as the greenery starts to die off and shrivel, it does leave you a little bit vulnerable in terms of the flower foam actually showing. Let's take a closer look at the altar area, and the theme here was my wedding day. The beautiful white flowers there, lilies, roses, gyp, and then here a tiered wedding cake. So there's round circles here being covered in white satin, and just beautiful placement of the flowers up at the sides. Honeysuckle there, roses, some trails of clematis, really beautiful. And then topped off with some azaleas, I think they are. After my wedding we had afternoon tea, so let's move along and have afternoon tea. This exhibit, this section of church was just amazing, and we understand that it was arranged by a flower arranger in her 80s. She did have another helper with her. I thought this was such a dramatic display, using the shelf under the windowsill to display teacups, and there's a rod going across with all these vintage teaware hanging down. So this is a midwinter design, Emma Bridgewater. See what else you can spot. Perhaps you might have some of these teacups in your own cupboard. Inside each one is nestled a flower. Just so modern and just gorgeous. I was blown away by this. And then across to the other side, all set out for tea here. And can you see the milk from the right is pouring into the cup and the tea from the left of the windowsill pouring into the cup? This is just such a clever idea. And the cake, absolutely beautiful. I think this must be the best depiction of a cake with flowers that I have ever seen. Made out of cardboard. And the brown, it looks a bit like Weetabix, but actually it's the heads of the broken heads of hydrangea. You know when you dry your hydrangea and the colour lasts for about a year and then it just degrades to that sort of murky brown. It's been paper mache'd almost onto it. Absolutely lovely. And a closer look at the fragrance of the tea. That's all the purples I'm imagining, and then the tea and the milk twining down into the teacup. And of course you couldn't have a cup of tea without a slice of cake. So you've got a rather lovely gatto here. You see how the cake's been edged in cinnamon sticks. That's one of the techniques I've shown before in my Zoom flower classes, which are now available to download from my website. So do check that out if you'd like to find out more about those classes. The floral cake here. So we've got some peonies and roses just sitting in some fairy cake cases. Such a simple idea. You could really take lots of these ideas and incorporate them perhaps into a summer party that you might be having at home. So a closer look at the milk jug. There's a whole line of them across the windowsill. There's some spider chrysanths, the big bloom chrysanthemums, which would have come with a protective netting over them. little teapot there, and the orange roses and the yellow roses. You see the dried leaves, actually picked up in the autumn time. And even the teaspoons get a makeover. With the little paper doilies, they've been converted into little angels or fairies hanging from the tree. And a closer look at that cake. I think the cream in the cake is a sealant, like a bathroom sealant that you get, and the jam individually glued on rose petals. And you can see the sort of papier-mâché technique I was talking about, when the glue put on the cardboard and then lots of those old dried hydrangea heads making up the sponge cake. And having had a nice cup of tea, it's now time to go to the ballet. And here we have a depiction of the Nutcracker. Again using those hydrangea heads, tiny ballet shoes with orchids, little baby's breath inside as well. Lovely candy floss pink, and the little children's tutu behind. And in amongst the net layers, a little bit of gyp's been added. There's ballerinas in embroidery hoops. Such a lovely idea. Might give you an idea if you're holding a flower festival in the future. So we'll take another walk down the aisle, and this time instead of looking down, looking up at the beautifully decorated chandelier. Have you heard the story of the twins Eliza and Mary Chalkhurst? Let's have a closer look at some of the tapestry kneelers and seat cushions that the church is locally known for. Beautiful work, depicting all kinds of occasions, anniversaries, royal occasions, Christmas and the seasons. And this one here caught my eye, depicting the flowers of spring, summer, autumn and winter. So I can highly recommend a visit to the church, especially if there's a flower festival on. I think we've been sitting down long enough. Let's go up those 112 steps to the top of the church tower. We paid £1 extra to do this. Taking a breather on the spiral staircase. And here we are, right at the top. It's a little bit blowy out there. We had an amazing view of the village, just checking that my car is still parked where I left it. A typical Kentish view, the Kent peg tiles on the roof, and green trees and countryside all around. And out through this part, you see the beacon down in the field. That would have been most recently lit to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. View out over the churchyard and the countryside beyond, and then there's a gentleman up on the roof who was kind enough to point out some local landmarks. Looking rather good, aren't they? This is the wonderful time about this time of year when everything is growing in such abundance. So I'm going to put these indoors to enjoy, and as I do, why don't you join me as I visit the third church of the day. This church is in Chollock, and it was called St Cosmos and Damien, and they were twins too. One was a GP and one was a vet. I'll give you a glimpse inside the church, and there's some fantastic murals in more detail. Well, that's another added perk of being in my membership group. Well, that brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to leave me a comment and tell me which was your favourite church and which was your favourite exhibit. I'd love it if you shared this video with a like-minded friend. Give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you enjoy the videos that I make, why don't you buy me a coffee? I'll leave a link to the coffee buying and details of how you can join my membership group in the description underneath this video. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you again next time.